Tensions between India and Pakistan escalated overnight as Pakistan intensified air operations. Sources say the Indian Air Force has thwarted attacks on Jammu, Pathankot and also Udhampur air bases. And that's not all. All Indian bases are safe. Now, we've been getting reports that there has been very heavy firing all along the LOC and the international border. Pakistan tried to carry out attacks on the Srinagar base as well. Let's get you more headlines right now. Air defense also thwarts an attack on Delhi. Government sources say that Pakistan's Fateh-II missile is likely aimed at Delhi and was intercepted at Sirsa, Haryana. As India carries out retaliatory action following an escalation in tension, sources say explosions have been heard in 3 air bases in Pakistan, including the Noor Khan Air Base in Rawalpindi, Muriq and Rafiki air bases as well. The International Monetary Fund clears an immediate $1 billion disbursement for Pakistan. A resilience and sustainability facility of an additional $1.4 billion has also been cleared. All right, let's bring up what's happened. If you can show this to our viewers on the map here, we've got an interactive graphics to explain you what's been happening overnight. So places like Udhampur, Jammu, Pathankot, Sirsa, these were areas that Pakistan tried to target last night with drones and Air Force attacks. That's not all. In Srinagar, there were multiple drone attacks and we brought down at least 6 to 8 drones in Srinagar itself. All along the LOC, there has been action. The border is still hot and we get to know from top sources in the government that key places in Pakistan have been targeted. Earlier, the Indian forces had managed to neutralize, destroy radars at Lahore. Now we believe that Indian forces have targeted Noor Khan Air Base in Rawalpindi. Now, this Noor Khan Air Base has 5 to 6 Air Force squadrons of the Pakistani Air Force. It's right next to the Rawalpindi headquarters, the headquarters of the Pakistani Armed Forces. So this has huge symbolic significance. It's 10 kilometers away from Islamabad. Then you have the Murid Air Base in Chakwal district of the Punjab province of Pakistan. Why is Murid important? Because this has the drone facility of the Pakistan Air Force. You have seen 300 drones moving from here towards the Indian side on the intervening night of 8th and 9th May. So most of that is coming from Murid. So the fact that Murid has been targeted is extremely important. Then you have the Rafiki Air Base in Shorcut in Punjab province. Now, Rafiki Air Base in Punjab has at least 5 to 6 squadrons, multiple squadrons of the JF-17 fighters. These are Chinese fighters that the Pakistani Air Force has. We've also been getting information that there has been some level of support from China, Turkey in the last few days, but that is not fully confirmed. We're still awaiting an official confirmation on that. But there are multiple areas where there have been targets, and India has also sent drones, missiles to different locations. We've heard of reports of blast explosions such as in Sukur Airport in Sindh. We've heard of explosions in Lahore, in Norwal, also in Islamabad. But what we can tell you for sure that there have been at least 3 targeted attacks by India at the Rafiki Air Base, which has JF-17 Chinese fighters, Murid Air Base, which has drones, and the Noor Khan Air Base, which has multiple squadrons of the Pakistani Air Force. And Noor Khan Air Base is right next to Rawalpindi headquarters of the Pakistani Army. We'd like to tell our viewers that at least 32 airports in the country are now shut. These are all along the border. Earlier, the number of airports that were shut was 24. The numbers have gone up to 32. And now this includes places like the Hindon Air Base, which is in Ghaziabad. You've got Ludhiana. You've got places such as Jamnagar, Jaisalmer. So a lot of civilian airports are shut because there is a worry that Pakistan is escalating. They have nefarious designs. They're intensifying the war. The fact that certain air routes to Delhi and Mumbai will be shut till the 15th of May only goes on to show that there is a feeling that this is going to go on for some time. It's not going to end. We are also getting statements from the G7. The G7 has asked for immediate de-escalation and diplomatic dialogue between India and Pakistan. They've expressed a lot of concern about rising hostilities. The External Affairs Minister has been in talks with his counterparts all across the world. Coming back to the military action again, you've got very heavy artillery firing taking place all across the LOC and the international border. At the same time, we believe that Pakistan has now shut its airspace because there is heavy action from the Indian side as well. So we are waiting for a formal briefing from the Indian government. It's going to happen between 10 and 11 a.m. this morning. They are going to give us a sense of what has transpired overnight. But it has been a night of very tense operations all across the board. The Army, the Air Force, Navy, all involved in these joint operations. It all began at around 8 p.m. yesterday with drone sightings at multiple locations at the LOC. Most of these drones were brought down very successfully. There were reports of explosions, blasts. In fact, there was a drone attack in Firozpur, unfortunately, where members of one family were badly injured as well. Several drones brought down our air defense system. So if you look at the international border and the LOC, you've got Akash missile system, which is deployed. You've got the S-400 air defense system as well. You've got the Barak-8 missile, and you've got an anti-drone shield. All of that coming into effect, and it has been working all night. Let me also go across to our managing editor, Shereen Bhan, at this point. Shereen, it's been a tough night, and this operation now seems to be intensifying. What we were worried about yesterday, that Pakistan Army and the Air Force were testing ground on the night of 8th May, now seems to be a full-blown operation.
Absolutely, Parikshit. Good morning, Archana, and good morning to all of our viewers who are tuning in here. We will intend to piece together what has happened overnight. And Parikshit, that's a very important point that you make, because as we were indicating to our viewers, it was an important comment that came in there in that briefing from Wing Commander Vyomika Singh, when she said, our belief is that the 300 to 400 drones that Pakistan used were more for intelligence gathering and not necessarily for perhaps the real attack purposes. So that was what gave us some indication that maybe we're not done just yet. And that's exactly how this is played out. In fact, during the course of this show, we will try and bring you that comment that came in there from Wing Commander Vyomika Singh on what had transpired the previous night when Pakistan used 300 to 400 drones, which were neutralized by India. But once again, Parikshit, for the benefit of our viewers, we do want to again, separate fact from fiction, and our colleague Santya Gora has been poring over all the fake claims. We will, of course, debunk that. But let's again explain the significance of what has transpired. Pakistan claims it launched Operation Fateh. Government sources now very clearly and categorically stating that the Pakistan missile has been neutralized. The indication is that it was targeting Delhi. All Delhi residents, please do not panic. There is no reason or cause for any panic at this point in time. Government sources say that that was neutralized very effectively. Now, let's start with that, because that is a very, very clear escalation, Parikshit, on the part of Pakistan. And even the comments that were coming in from the Pakistani government, as well as the military establishment last night, seemed to suggest that they were not going to be dialing back.
Right, that's absolutely true. And there doesn't seem to be an end to these hostilities as of now, at least. Let me also go across to Group Captain Ajay Lele, the Deputy Director General of the IDSA. Sir, what's your sense of what has happened overnight? Very intense military operations between India and Pakistan. The reports coming in and information coming in from top government sources is that India has targeted 3 key air bases in Pakistan, including the Noor Khan Air Base, the Murid Air Base, and also the Rafiki Air Base. The significance of these operations, according to you?
I think we got to look at the things happening at a larger context. After what India did on 7th in response to the terror attack on Pahalgam, there was no other option for Pakistan but to have some sort of a face saver. And they started using drone attacks on the night of 8th. As it was rightly pointed out, that basically they were testing the waters at that point in time, checking the capabilities of India's air defense systems, how prepared India is to throttle any sort of a drone attacks. And they continued those types of operations even yesterday. There have been certain damages as far as India is concerned, but most of the drone attacks, our Akash system, S-400 system, they have been ensuring that these things will not reach to the target. But since now Pakistan appears to be in an escalation mood, and it was very clear as far as India is concerned that tomorrow if something goes to a level of some sort of a limited war or something, India should have an edge over there. And under those circumstances, to neutralize the capabilities of Pakistani Air Force, the best option will be first to attack their airfields to ensure that their air defense systems are totally neutralized. And I think from that perspective, these types of things are happening. I think both the forces are trying to test the waters. Let's see who blinks first.
To stay with us for a moment, Archana, there have been a lot of reports about Saudis intervening in the tensions between India and Pakistan. We've got a statement from the G7 as well, asking for immediate de-escalation. Give us a sense of what's happening on the ground. What can we expect over the next few hours as far as this operation is concerned?
Well, Parikshit, Saudi Arabia and the UAE have, as you mentioned, aside of G7, have urged de-escalation. And in a confirmation, Saudi Arabia's foreign minister visited both India and Pakistan between May 8th and 9th and spoke to the stakeholders and urged for peace and dialogue. Remember, for the Gulf states, India and Pakistan are both very, very important countries because of the number of Indians and Pakistanis that live in Saudi Arabia and the UAE. So they have urged for de-escalation. If I could read the statement there, it says that upon the directives of the leadership of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, His Highness Mr. Adil bin Ahmed Al Jubair visited the Republic of India and Pakistan during the period of May 8th and 9th. The visit comes as a part of Kingdom's efforts towards de-escalation, ending ongoing military confrontation and resolving all disputes through dialogue and diplomatic channels. Another significant development is that while it's reassuring that India's bases are safe, India is intercepting Pakistani missiles, there is one unfortunate piece of news that has come in, is the devastating news from Rajouri, and the Chief Minister of J&K has also tweeted about it, that we have lost a dedicated officer of the J&K Administration Services. Just yesterday, he was accompanying the Deputy Chief Minister around the district and attended the online meeting the Chief Minister chaired, and the Chief Minister there announcing the demise of a senior officer. So these are the two big developments that we are tracking, Parikshit.
All right, let me go back to Ajay Lele. Group Captain Lele, the Fateh-II missile has been fired by the Pakistani forces. This has a range of 250 to 400 kilometers. Does this mean that Pakistan now has significantly escalated things?
Definitely. You see, that sort of a proportionate response which was being talked after 7th, I think that thing has gone now out of the window. And proportionate response is not being seen, at least witnessed from the side of Pakistan. India has been, in spite of having all sorts of capabilities, never wanted to increase the nature of the attacks further. So India has kept restraint for all these days. But I was earlier mentioning that if there is going to be some sort of an aerial attack, so under those circumstances, it will be prudent on part of India to be more proactive. And that's the reason I think Indian forces have already ensured that some sort of a damage will happen to the Paki airbases, particularly the airbases from where their air forces are operating, so that they will not be able to launch any sort of an attack from those places.
Right, Group Captain Lele, thanks very much for joining us early this morning to help our viewers understand where we find ourselves in this escalating conflict. And as you were pointing out, we have clearly moved up the escalation ladder with Pakistan doing what it has done overnight. What we know from all accounts from our defense ministry sources as well as government sources is that all Indian Air Force air bases are safe. And that's very important to point out because attempts were made by Pakistan last night included to try and attack several air bases in India. Group Captain Lele, from where we find ourselves, what would you anticipate in terms of the next course of action? Given what we've already seen Pakistan do so far, the use of the Fateh missile last night, a clear escalation, what would you anticipate now in terms of the next course of action? we lost that line with Captain Lele, but we will bring him back shortly. Parikshit, one of the other important developments that's taken place overnight is, of course, the IMF granting that bailout package. It is not unexpected. This is what we were reporting on CNBC TV18. Essentially, the IMF, for the IMF, Pakistan is too big to fail. And so that package was cleared. India abstained because there is no provision for any kind of a negative vote as far as the IMF process is concerned. Archana, you were tracking that story closely as well. And of course, now the IMF has come out with an official statement. And we will bring you the Indian comments to that. Of course, clear disappointment on the Indian side. But once again, for our viewers, we want to piece through what exactly has transpired with that IMF bailout package that was approved last night. Archana.
Yes. Well, Shereen, for the benefit of our viewers, it's very important to understand why Pakistan has been granted one loan, one bailout after another. Remember, their debt, Pakistan is drowning under massive debt. It's about $280 billion, out of which $180 billion is owed to internal creditors and the remaining to the external creditors like the IMF, like the World Bank, like China because of the CPEC projects. And since 1958, IMF has given 24 loans to Pakistan. And Pakistan has time and again cited that its economy is sinking. It needs to infuse new life into its public enterprises. It wants to improve its economy, and that is why it's getting one bailout after another. But of course, for obvious reasons, we know that the money has not been used where it should have been used. There are three main reasons. One is, of course, that money is being used by the Pakistani military establishment to sponsor terrorism. Second, corruption. According to various agencies, Pakistan is one of the most corrupt nations, and which is why that money is not being used for the purpose it should have been used. And third, that there aren't enough tax filers in the country. So for that purpose, the money that it was originally supposed to be used has not been used. And after assessments that happen every year, it is reviewed whether the country deserves the next bailout or not. And yesterday, that important meeting that took place, IMF assessed, and we have to still arrive to the conclusion why they chose to go ahead with that understanding and why that bailout was released, although it was on expected lines and India abstained from that vote. But these assessments are done, and the $7 billion bailout that was approved in 2024, of which $1 billion has already been released. Yesterday was the second tranche, and what happens next is going to be the next year when the assessment will happen again. So there's been a long history of not just IMF, but other creditors also that Pakistan is actually relying on. But India and other countries also have actually raised protests as to why Pakistan is being given these loans, because it's not using the money where it should have been used.
Absolutely. Let me bring back Group Captain Lele into the conversation. Group Captain Lele, unfortunately, we lost you, but for a moment. But I just wanted to understand, what you made of the comment that came in from Wing Commander Vyomika Singh in the briefing last evening, where she was talking about the use of 300 to 400 drones that took place not last night, but the previous night. And in the assessment of the government and the defense establishment, it indicated that Pakistan was perhaps gathering intelligence, and this may not have been the real warfare or the real attempt at drone warfare that one was expecting. Also, in light of the use of the Fateh missile last night by Pakistan, which is a clear move up on the escalation ladder, what would you now expect the response to be?
I think Pakistan is definitely trying to escalate the things. In spite of, as you were mentioning, facing financial crisis, they are not understanding that in which direction they are heading. If you read their military tactics clearly, then as it was pointed out by the Indian officials, that yes, they are sending drones. The drones are of various categories. There are certain drones who are the combat drones, who actually carry a certain amount of a warhead in it. There are certain drones who carries cameras, who visit a particular place transmit the information back to their operators sitting in Pakistan. So these types of drones are basically trying to gather a certain amount of intelligence inputs. Now one must understand that why at this point in time Pakistan is trying to gather the intelligence inputs. So basically what they are gathering is a tactical intelligence in order to ensure that tomorrow if they want to do a major attack, then they will have a relevant information available with them. So I think we have to be extremely careful, and it was rightly pointed out by Wing Commander also that yes, they are into this business and India is fully aware of what they are doing. And that's the reason we are trying to ensure that as many drones could be actually killed on Indian airspace. That will be a better option for us because these drones are in various categories and every drone would be having a different type of a utility as far as Pakistan Armed Forces are concerned. It's not necessary that every drone will be only there for offensive action. It could be for the purposes of intelligence gathering too, and that intelligence could be used at a later date.
Absolutely, you're making that point very clearly, and that is what seems to have happened. But again, now, Group Captain Lele, in terms of the options that India has at this point in time, and this has largely been driven by the by air operations. It has been contactless so far. Given the options that India has in its ammunition and what we have seen so far as our strategy is concerned, what would you anticipate as the next steps from the Indian side? Because as you clearly pointed out, that now the question of proportionate response is perhaps behind us.
I think now the question which remains into the mind of people who are trying to decide on the policy options henceforth is that what is a proportionate response? If Pakistan is not believing in proportionate response, what should be the India's answer to that? Are you able to threaten Pakistan to a certain level that they will stop doing all these types of activities? So definitely, I think the measure of a proportion will be there in the minds of the people who are taking forward this warfare, this particular battle or this particular operation, that what is proportionate so that Pakistan will get deterred out of it. And I think that will be the next step because India is definitely not interested in starting any sort of a war. But at the same time, India is definitely not going to call down by Pakistan's drone attacks because this is basically a nature of a warfare which you are seeing nowadays happening all over the world, that before any sort of a major conflict starts, initially there are a certain amount of cyber things which happen, which are followed by the drone. And India would be in interest of everybody, would be interested in stopping at this level, but Pakistan has to behave. And I think that question and a definition of a proportionality will start varying now.
That is right, Group Captain Lele. A pleasure. Thank you very much for joining us here on the program. Group Captain Lele there explaining to us what he makes of what has transpired overnight and the many developments that have taken place. But Parikshit, going back to the current state of play and the current operations, we are given to understand that operations continue.
Absolutely, and very intense operations, Shereen. We've not seen things calming down. Since 8 p.m. yesterday, we've seen drone attacks in multiple locations. In fact, we got information from the army late last night that there were 26 locations targeted from Baramulla in the north to Bhuj in the south. We should also tell our viewers that the number of airport closures has been increased from 24 to 32. So there are more civilian airports which have been shut down because now there is a worry that Pakistan is escalating things. Things are getting serious and they may want to target more air bases, more airports within the country. We've seen reports about the Fateh-II missile being fired at New Delhi. That was successfully intercepted. Now, this is worrying news, of course. We are on a state of high alert. And barring these 32 airports, I'll bring them up for our viewers in just a bit. But just to give our viewers some action, what happened last night, 26 locations targeted by Pakistani armed drones. There was an attack on Firozpur via drone. A family was injured. The Asis Guard Songar drone has been used by Pakistani forces. This is a Turkish-made drones. And we have seen equipment used by Pakistan, which has clear Chinese origins and Turkish origins in this exercise. Many cheap quality drones have been used. Why? This is because Pakistan wants to assess our response. Authorities have asked citizens not to panic but remain vigilant. remain at high alert, and those in border areas have been asked to stay indoors, not step outside for anything that is unnecessary at the moment. Very heavy shelling all across the LOC. In Srinagar, I believe there was a lot of drone activity. 6 to 8 drones were brought down in Srinagar itself. We're also getting to know that all our air bases are safe. There were some reports of an explosion at the Jaipur airport. That is completely false. In fact, we're getting to know that significant airstrikes have been carried out at multiple locations across Pakistan. We can speak about the Murid Air Base, the Noor Khan Air Base and the Rafiki Air Base. More information is expected to come in over the next 1 or 2 hours.
Absolutely. We will wait for that. But also, we are now starting to see a loss of lives. And Omar Abdullah, the Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir, just tweeting saying devastating news coming in from Rajouri. We've lost a dedicated officer of the Jammu and Kashmir Administrative Service. Just yesterday, he was accompanying the Deputy Chief Minister around the district and attended the online meeting that I chaired. Today, the residence of the officer was hit by Pak shelling as they targeted Rajouri town, killing our Additional District Development Commissioner, Sri Rajkumar Thapa. I have no words to express my shock and sadness at this terrible loss of a life. May his soul rest in peace. So we have now seen an officer of the J&K Administrative Service lose his life on account of shelling by Pakistan targeted at the Rajouri town that has cost him his life. This is serious. This is not a video game, as many of the fake videos are being circulated, masquerading as what is actually happening on the ground. And just for the benefit of our viewers, there were some references that Parikshit made to the kind of fake news that is being circulated. And I want to highlight once again, please do not share and forward unverified information on WhatsApp. It only causes panic, and it is of no use to the current operations underway. The fake news that we want to debunk here. So if you are listening, this is important. There are claims being made that Pakistan's attacks have caused 70% of India's electricity grid to be dysfunctional. That is false. That is a false claim. The second false claim we want to debunk is that India has launched a drone attack on the Nankana Sahib Gurdwara. That is false. That is fake news. There is no temporary closure of the Delhi-Mumbai airline service. So once again, do not panic. No temporary closure of the Delhi-Mumbai airline service at this point in time. And as Parikshit was pointing out, no explosions took place at the Jaipur airport. That claim is false. It is fake. Also, there is no advisory that's been issued advising people to turn off location services on their phones immediately. This is also fake, so don't fall for that. There is no need for you to turn off your location services at this point in time. There is no such advisory that is coming from any government agency or any government body. But Parikshit, perhaps I could request you to go back to the map and help our viewers understand where those Pak bases are that were targeted by India overnight, because that would give us a sense of the action that transpired and the significance of India's response.
Right, Shereen. We are just getting the map on our screens for our viewers. We have been looking at very intense operations over the last 24 to 48 hours. We have seen Pakistani action all across the LOC in places like Srinagar. They tried to target with drones. They've tried to target Udhampur, Jammu, Pathankot, Sirsa in Haryana. And that is why airports all along the LOC and international border are shut. The number of airports being shut has been increased to 32. Now, let's bring up places which have been targeted by India in Pakistan. Let me start with the Noor Khan Air Base. The reason why Noor Khan Air Base is important, Shereen, because it has multiple fighters of the Pakistani Air Force. It is right next to Rawalpindi, which is the headquarters of the Pakistani Army. So this really hits at the core of the Pakistani establishment, and probably why Pakistan is going to be hitting back with all the more intensity, because it is the army headquarters and we know how the army controls the economy and governance in Pakistan. This is 10 kilometers away from Islamabad as well. Then let me come to the Murid Air Base. Now, Murid Air Base has a large contingent, a large number of drones. So Those drone attacks that you saw, the swarms of drones moving towards the Indian border, all of that was coming from the Murid Air Base in Chakwal of the Punjab province in Pakistan. Then let's come to Shorkat province in Shorkat district of Punjab province in Pakistan. You had the Rafiki Air Base. Now, Rafiki Air Base has multiple fighter squadrons. The JF-17 Chinese fighters. Pakistan has F-16s. They have Chinese fighters. And from here, the Chinese fighters were deployed against the Indian forces as well. They have Mirage squadrons also here at the Rafiki Air Base. And all these Turkish drones, the Turkish drone was the Asishgard Songar drone, which was used by the Pakistani forces. JF-17 Chinese fighters were used. So probably for the first time, we're looking at Turkish and Chinese support very directly to Pakistan in an operation against India. In fact, Indian officials are monitoring if there is some sort of direct support from Turkey and Pakistan, Turkey and China to Pakistan, even as this operation goes on. We've also heard of explosions and actions near the Sukur airport in Sindh. We've heard of explosions in Lahore, Narowal, Sheikhupura, Islamabad as well. But a lot of these are unconfirmed reports. Why am I saying unconfirmed? Because the Indian forces would be trying to gather evidence of the damage caused. You've got air defense systems. You've got fighter jets like the Rafale, like the Mirages, like the Su-30s. All of them are carrying out targeted operations against Pakistani forces. And we have to verify information, verify the damage before we come out and give it to the media. What is very significant and a very clear sign of escalations is the firing of the Fateh-II missile, which is a guided artillery rocket system with a range of 250 to 400 kilometers. The Pakistani Air Force and the Pakistani government have said they've used this against a strategic location. The Indian government has managed to intercept it very, very successfully. This missile actually has the ability to guide itself just before landing at the place of target. So very significant escalation by Pakistan, and it's not going unanswered by India either.
Well, that's a very comprehensive lay of the map and what transpired last night, and more importantly, the weapon systems that are in use at this point. But let me bring Archana back into the conversation. Archana, the hope is that Pakistan will dial things down, that there will be some sort of a reality check on the Pakistani side in terms of not escalating things further. There, of course, have been diplomatic conversations underway. We heard from the White House yesterday in the White House press briefing. We also saw that readout from Secretary Rubio, where he did say that he had a call with the Pakistan Prime Minister. And the US statement, actually, that readout was very clear that A, they wanted Pakistan and India to de-escalate, but B, they also said that Pakistan must end any support to any terror groups, any terror organizations. That was the readout post the call of Secretary Marco Rubio and the Pakistan Prime Minister. The G7 also issuing a statement, and more importantly, Archana, the Saudis are, of course, trying to see if they can play a role, play a part in this at this point in time. The Saudi Minister of State for Foreign Affairs was in India, met both Jaishankar as well as the Prime Minister. Take us through the statement that's coming from the G7 as well as what the Saudis are saying.
Right, Shereen, it's very important to understand how the international community is reacting to these developments. And as you mentioned about the US, let me also include the G7 and Saudi here. So the G7 countries essentially are Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the US and the UK. So they have called for immediate de-escalation between India and Pakistan. They have expressed deep concern about the safety of civilians, because we know how these shells are landing in civilian areas. So which is why they have expressed deep concerns about that. G7 has urged both nations to engage in a direct dialogue for a peaceful outcome. And these countries are, of course, monitoring these developments that are unfolding. Another significant development is the statement that's come in as far as Saudi Arabia is concerned. As I mentioned, that for Saudi Arabia, both India and Pakistan are very important allies. because of the number of Indians and Pakistanis that live there, and not just Saudi Arabia but UAE as well. So Saudi Arabia's foreign minister visited India and Pakistan on 8th and 9th of May. They've urged for peace and dialogue between the two countries. And this is not the first time, Shereen. In 2019 as well, when India launched airstrikes on Pakistan. That is also when the UAE and Saudi Arabia had intervened and urged for de-escalation. Back then, UAE's foreign minister Sheikh Abdullah bin Zayed flew to Islamabad and New Delhi, and he also urged for de-escalation. So these countries, they understand that India and Pakistan are both important stakeholders, and once again, the Gulf states are stepping up and urging for peaceful dialogue and de-escalation.
Absolutely. In fact, let's listen into Caroline Levitt at that White House press briefing that took place when a question was raised on what the US is doing when it comes to India and Pakistan. Take a look.
Can you give us an update on U.S. efforts to mediate or have an impact on the conflict between India and Pakistan?
Sure, I absolutely can. This is something that the Secretary of State and, of course, now our National Security Advisor as well, Marco Rubio, has been very much involved in. The President has expressed he wants to see this de-escalate as quickly as possible. He understands these are two countries that have been at odds with one another for decades, long before President Trump was here in the Oval Office. However, he has good relationships with the leaders of both countries, and the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, I spoke to him just yesterday. He has been in constant communication with the leaders of both countries trying to bring this conflict to an end.
Well, that's Caroline Levitt, the White House press briefing. And as I pointed out, Secretary Marco Rubio did speak with the Pakistan Prime Minister as well. And that readout made it very clear that Marco Rubio told the Pakistan Prime Minister that Pakistan must stop supporting terror and terror organizations. Well, Reuters is reporting the Pakistan planning minister is raising the nuclear bogey, saying that we would hate to see the nuclear threshold being breached, that hope India will now de-escalate to move to dialogue and diplomacy. It is up to Pakistan to dial back and dial down. And that is the only way that things can move towards any kind of dialogue, and diplomatic channels are being used at this point in time. But that is what the Pakistan planning minister has said to Reuters at this point in time. Well, we are going to take a break, but return with a continuous verified. And I'm stressing on that because there is so much misinformation, so much disinformation on CNBC TV18. We will only carry verified information. So stay tuned. We're back in a moment with the latest.